Hello everyone, in this video I will show you how to use Ethernet with your STM32F767 board. The method that I will be showing you is actually possible to use many different microcontrollers, but I will be showing it on my STM32 card. So as you know, the STM Nucleo 144 based on F7 chip has built-in Ethernet. So you have the Ethernet chip and it is connected to this Ethernet port, RG port over there. And to be able to use this port, we must enable the Ethernet on our board. So it is under connectivity, Ethernet, and you would choose the right configuration, and then you would select what kind of MAC address it's supposed to be. And RxTX descriptors, they are not so important, but they are more about like how to handle the memory, which you need to double check with your datasheet. That can be a little bit challenging. Another thing that is important when you're using Ethernet, particularly with this board, it is highly suggested to use lightweight IP stack. So this is suggested to be enabled. You can do like built-in TCP IP as well, but it is much more challenging to configure it. And then you could select what IP addresses, if you want to have the HCP module enabled or not. And then you had some other parameters supposed to be set in here as well. And then since this application is resource intensive and there are like lots of blocking actions might happen, then another thing that is very much suggested to use is a type of RTOS, but our card supports free RTOS. So you are supposed to enable the free RTOS as well to handle those different threads, not to be blocking different things that you would be doing in your microcontroller. And there are again a bunch of things that you need to kind of set. And this part, having it directly through STM32 CubeMX, might be a bit challenging. This is how we normally set up our projects, which is quite fine. This is how you would do by using CubeMX directly. But today what I'm going to show you is something different, that you will be using CubeMX afterwards, but all these initial setups related to memory, related to RTOS and all those stuff are done much easier way. So you can create a template for the TCP IP stack, and then you can add other things about your motors, about your lights, and whatever you want to have in your microcontroller or in your embedded system, you can add it on top of that. So this is how I'm going to show what I'm going to show today. Therefore, I'm not going to use STM CubeMX right now. Therefore, I would like to close this one. I don't want to save it, anything in here. The thing that I will be showing you is something called Mongoose. It is a very simple web server development platform that you don't even need to code anything, but it can generate STM code that you can modify afterwards. So I will show you how to use Mongoose and then modify your code in CubeMX afterwards. But one more thing, unfortunately with the current versions of the drivers, HAL drivers in Platformio, the generated project and the Ethernet module doesn't work with Platformio. So we will not be using Platformio in this video. I will make a separate video with I will be talking about errors in Platformio, and maybe you have a solution to solve them. But today I will be using Cube IDE to build my code and deploy it to the board. So for you to be able to follow the project, today what I'm gonna do, you need to install Cube IDE. Go to Google and search Cube IDE. And Cube IDE software, you will go and in here you will see get software. You will select that one, and here you need to select your platform. I have Windows PC, that's why I will be using, or I have that one, the latest version. One thing after this, I'm not gonna download the installer one more time since I already have it, but in the next step it will ask you to log in with your SD account. You need to log in and then you will have an exe file and then you will be able to install like you would install any kind of programs. So accept it and download the program and then you will be good to go for this video tutorial. So let's jump to Mongoose. And in Mongoose, when you go to mongoose.ws, so Mongoose web server, you can click start building your web UI. That was something from before that I had. So for you, probably nothing will show up, but if something shows up, you can just go directly on top here and make new. And in here, we would like to create a new C++ project. So if you select that and next, and you need to select a directory. This is very important, by the way, because if you select a non-empty directory, for example, if you select directly this folder, it is gonna overwrite the whole folder. So you will lose all your projects under this directory. So please be careful. Do not select something that has already some other folders in it. I would like to put my projects under the documents and I have a Mongoose workspace. I would like to create a new folder here. Let's call it F767 Mongoose app. I select this folder now. Now this is an empty folder. It is safe to select this one. I will select it and we will allow editing. And the target architecture we need to select. So our board, by the way, my board is not connected, so that's why it didn't show up immediately. If I connect it, it will show your board easily. Let me connect it there. If I go back and if I go next, well, probably I should have done it before, but if you have your board connected, then it will select directly from the list of COM ports. Anyways, we can find it over here, F767. This is my board, so I select this one. We are using CubeIDE. Afterwards, we will be doing that. And this is what we were selecting in CubeMX as well, right? And for here, RTOs, as I mentioned, with the web applications, it is highly suggested to use the type of RTOs, and our board supports free RTOs. That's why we don't want to use bare metal. We will select free RTOs here. And we can select next. We can select some default dashboard, like there are lots of UI elements on it. We can have like a 3 toggle LEDs because we have 3 LEDs on our board as well, right? We can select that one too. But I would like to start with a blank dashboard, so you can modify as you want. And next. And the setup is complete. And now, first we would like to start adding things. This is gonna be what it would be showing on the browser when you enter the server's IP address, okay? So let's start putting a container first, because we would like to have things a bit tidy. And then maybe we can have a toggle button to toggle our LEDs, one of them at least. And maybe we can have a text in it. I can say text over here. The text to show that it is gonna be LED 1, and this is gonna toggle my LED on my board. This is the first thing that I want to do, and then I would like to add like a printing out the button state afterwards. Let's do it step by step. And in here now I set a toggle button and I have a text value. To change their values, you just click on them, or you can go to page contents. By the way, these are red right now because we haven't assigned anything, but we will be doing it very soon. So in here, I just want to say, this is just going to be my LED1. And I don't want to change anything. That's why I don't want to put any or keep any variable name over there. And you see my toggle button in here, and it has settings and bool value. We will assign the correct name for those API variables. These are in page content. It is giving an error. Since I removed the variable name, that is not giving me any error anymore, but still the toggle button is giving me error, which is red, because there's no endpoint. I can add an endpoint over here. Let's say LEDs, or LEDs, let's call it like this, because maybe we want to add more. And now we would like to add an attribute. Since this is a toggle, we can say that maybe a bool variable is a good choice. So I can say, for example, LD1, which is that I want to call it for the LED1. We give a variable name. And then in here, I can select bool, because this is an on-off toggle. And its initial value, we can set it false. And you can just keep it like this. Everything is fine here. But if you are curious, you can see there is a generated glue code. This will be generated when you build your code. We will be using these are the getter and setter for this UI element that will be connected to our microcontroller. There's one last thing left. We will go to page content, and you see the setting bool val is not what we want. Now we have an LD, so from LEDs endpoint, there is an LD1 element, which is bool, that we would like to add in this toggle. So if you go here, you see directly it shows from LEDs to LD1 will be our endpoint. And you see now the error is also gone. It is a very simple dashboard right now, but enough for us to do things. One more thing, under the settings here, currently it is going to create a new project because we haven't created anything. And if I click generate C++ code, then it will create it for me. But later on, we will change it to, when we modify things, we will select the integrate into existing project. So at the moment, we are not changing anything. We are just going to create a new project. If you click on the generate C++ code on the right top, you will see in the code that something familiar, a kind of project folder familiar to what we normally do with our CubeMX project. There is one difference with this kind of project folder than the one that we are a bit more used to in our lectures, is that when you're in a code manager, we deselect generate under root, right? That's why our main.c and main.h is directly under inc and source folder. But in here, you see they are under the core. So this is because we are normally deselecting it in our lectures to make it a little bit cleaner. But that's why it's a little bit different. Apart from that, it is completely the same. You see we have the drivers. Now we have extra middlewares. Those are the ones that I mentioned you that you would need for a reliable TCP/IP projects. They are in here. And there's one more folder called Mongoose. And in this Mongoose folder, you have different files, C files and header files we will be using to make to set getter and setter for our TCP/IP project. So this is how it looks like. Now we are happy with this. We would like to go to Cube IDE, not Visual Studio Code with Platformio, but we are using this one now. In here, you would like to open projects from file system, and you would like to find the directory under the workspace. This is my project, right? I select this one and select folder here. You see there are no errors, everything is fine. Therefore, I can just press finish. Okay, for some reason it does not do that. STM IDE C. Probably it's conflicting with this project, so let me just delete this project for now. I'm not gonna delete it on the desk, but I just remove it from my workspace. Now I can try one more time. Open project file system, and in the directory, if I go to Mongoose app, which is my directory, it doesn't give me any error. Everything is fine. So if I select finish, yeah, that was probably because I had it in the same folder, I don't know. Anyway, so I have the project in here now. I think they both IOCs named the same with my prior project and this project. That's probably the reason, but I'm not gonna think too much about it. So if you want to have both of them, probably you need to change the name for those IOCs, which takes the name from. Anyways, so if you want to follow the official tutorial, the README file has step by step what you are supposed to do in your project. But I will be showing you now in the video. That's why I would like to close this file now. By the way, CubeIDE has its built-in CubeMX, so which is produced in another version. That's why we would like to migrate it to the current version. But you can do CubeMX related things in CubeIDE. That's why you do not need an extra CubeMX. Therefore, I can close the CubeMX program, the standalone program. We can just double click this IOC and we can open the CubeMX in the CubeIDE. Here you are. By the way, it's slightly slower than the one that we are familiar with, but that's not such a big deal. Now I would like to toggle an LAD, right? And I know that PB0 is the one that is connected to my LD1, but you can select any other any other LEDs or any external one as well. So I would like to select this one. This is selected as GPIO output already, but I would like to change its name to LD1. It doesn't matter what you call, but LD1 is the one we are familiar with. That's why I would like to call it LD1. At the moment, I'm not going to do anything, but later on I will set button as well. So you can do all those things on CubeMX in here now after you generated the Mongoose project. So now I'm gonna save it. I press Ctrl S, and different than what we are used to in CubeMX, we are not clicking generate code in here. When you save your CubeMX, then it will ask you if you want to generate the code. I would like to generate the code as well, and it will take me directly to code visual or code perspective if I press yes now. Here we are. This is our Mongoose generated file, which has also the connection with our CubeMX, and all those folders are in our project directory. So we are gonna do manual changes like we do with our other projects. This Mongoose glue is very important for us because it keeps the glue functions to implement getter and setter. If you have a look at the glue function, Mongoose glue.c, you see that we have an LEDs element, right? And this LEDs element has only one element in it, which is selected as false, and it has getter. Can I make it a bit bigger maybe? So I was talking about the Mongoose glue. You see that there are two functions created, getter and setter, and these are the ones we will be using in our main.c. Another thing that is important for us to configure is the Mongoose config. In this Mongoose config, you have several variable definitions or macro definitions that are linked to your Ethernet or TCP/IP setup. So you see that this is already generated, but we haven't selected any IP name for our device, or if it's going to be DHCP or not, enabled or not. So this is where we select them or where we adjust them. You see, currently any IP address or net mask or gateway is not selected. That's why it is using this DHCP. But if I remove them, then this is the IP address, this is the gateway, and this is the mask for our board that is gonna be built when we build the project to our board. By the way, since we are already here, before we write any code, maybe we can adjust our Ethernet settings. So if you go and search network settings in your control panel, network and internet, and your work sharing center, and you see I don't have the connection yet, so I will connect my Ethernet. Now the Ethernet showed up in here. This is the Ethernet that I have. And in properties, IPv4 and properties. I do not want to use DHCP. That's why I select the manual IP address. So this is the IP address for my PC. I need to have my microcontroller to be in the same network. Therefore, I can set 192.168.182 and 11. That would be quite fine. I set like a regular submask, but for the gateway, I did not leave it empty, but I set the default gateway for the router itself. So this is what my settings look like for now, and you need to select something like that, or you are free to use my numbers in here as well. So I would like to, I cannot copy it like that, but I can just select it in here. So 192.168.182, and 10 was for my for my PC, and I will set 11, for example. For gateway, I will set like this, right? And let's check. It looks correct to me. I will say OK, and then close, and then close, just to make sure we are on the right path. If you CMD here, and if you write IP config, you see that my Ethernet adapter, Ethernet for the one that I set, has IPv4 address, the one that I set. So therefore, this should work. That is the first thing that I have changed in my code yet. And now I will go back to Mongoose glue. First of all, I need to implement these, okay? So I will just have them, I will copy them, and I need to implement them in my main.c. So in the main.c, I will just go and put them in my private functions here. So I will set it. I will not use this one anymore, but it is nice to have it. If you see that in this LEDs, the LED struct has only one element, which is a Boolean element. So we will change the data's LD1 element. And if I go to my main.c, so this is just the placeholder. This is not what we are gonna use. But when we have the get, what we want to do is my data's LD1 will be my whatever the value that I have for the LED. So I can say, for example, HAL GPIO read pin. So I have from LD1 ports, and I have the LD1 pin. And also now this is gonna get the data from my LED. On the other hand, when we want to set things, we are not gonna use this either. We would like to write into our LED. So we will use HAL GPIO write for my LD1 ports, and I have LD1 pin. What I'm gonna write is, I can toggle as I change, but I already set a bool variable, right? So I can actually use my datas LD1. I will continue changing it, but I think it is also nice to have a kind of a print somewhere to debug to see if everything is working properly, if we are able to get in those functions or not. That's why I would like to implement a printf. There's one very good thing. The printf is already implemented with your Mongoose project. So you see that this write function is overwritten, which is writing data to your UART transmit on your UART3, which is our serial communication to our board. So if I just start and write printf in here, and for example, get cold, and in here, if I put set cold, then I can make sure from my terminal if I'm correctly calling those functions or not. By the way, I will not use the original names for those. I will change them. So instead of glue get lets, I will call it my get lets, and here my set lets. So now my getter and setter is ready. What I need to do is to call them in my main loop. But since normally we would just use them in here because this is my main while loop. But since we have enabled free RTOs, which is like handling all those threads in the background, instead of writing them in the main while loop, we will write them under the RTOs. So if you scroll down a little bit, you see that there's a function called start default task, and there already Mongoose initialized and Mongoose is pulled. What I want to do is to call my getter and setter in this one. To do that, we have one function, which is, I'm not going to do it inside the loop. I need to do it only once, which is called Mongoose set HTTP handlers. And we would like to give which UI element we are talking about. So this is called let's, or which endpoint, maybe is the right terminology. This is let's because this was the one that we selected in REST API, our endpoint name, right? That's why this is the one we are doing. And if I go back to my tube IDE, so this is the let's. And first I will give the name of the getter, my get let's. I will give as a function name, so it needs to find the function, it's not calling it. And then the next one, my setter, my setlets, and I will not call it with the data. So now my HTTP handler is there and ready, and there is Mongoose pull, and that's it. We are done. We defined getter, setter, and we called it in the start default text. If I save it now, and if I, on top of there, if I build the project first and see if there are any errors, I would like to see the console down there. Cool, we do not have any errors. And in here, for the first time, when you haven't compiled your project before, you need to have run as, because I don't have any run configuration here. So you will have run as, and the configuration window will show up. You are gonna select OK the first time, and from now on, you can just use the same configuration for building your code again and again. Let me see. Now my microcontroller is compiling or building the code. Now it is not ready yet. It takes a bit longer than Platformio, to be honest. Okay, now it says it is done, it exits, and I see that my debugging LED also stopped blinking. I can put it back there. Before I try my Mongoose app, I will first go to CMD, and what was my IP address with 11. So I would like to try pinging first. Ping 192.168.182 and 11. Yes, I see that the connection is fine. We are good to go trying our project. So I can close this one now. If I now go back to, at this point you need to use a kind of serial monitor, because Mongoose app has its built-in prints or logging function on the terminal. You can see, you can open it in here, so you can have the command shell console, but I like the Visual Studio's serial monitor a bit better. Let me just try this one. We don't need to switch it, but I will select a new one. Let me see from device manager. Ports, COM port 8 is my STM, so I can go to STM32F767, which is using COM 8, and this is the official, like in CubeMX baud rate we set, and those are the same as in the CubeMX. Finish, and I will keep the encoding UTF-8 and OK. So now it is connected. I will press the reset button, the black button on the card, and you can see now it started again. When I pressed it, it was network down, and now you see that my server is in that server, in this IP address. So let's go and write this one. 192.18168, yes, there. Yes, my dashboard is there and everything is up and working, and when it doesn't work now. And I think I know what the problem is. So in the API, when we selected the UI element, this one, in the page content, we haven't saved the auto change. So we are changing things, but we are not sending it to our code. So we need to actually enable this one to be able to see the changes immediately. That's why I forgot that. And let's do this one. And now in the settings, we are not gonna create a new, but we are gonna integrate to an existing project. So far so good. Now we can generate the code again, which will directly change the code inside. Therefore, we can just go and build it or put it the code in our board. Now it is still uploading the code. Yeah, okay. Now it is good. And now we can just jump back to our serial monitor in here. This is the one that is already connected. I can jump to that. And you see that it is already updated. Then that's good. I can just go to my, not the dashboard editing, but my the IP address on the browser. So I can try. Oh no. I'm a little bit unsure now. It seems like I cannot go into the getter or setter. So could it be I don't understand why there are two here. I would like to get this in here. So we don't need two infinite loops, huh? I would like to run that. So the debugging part is actually revealing that we are not able to get in the getter or setter. So if I refresh, Network is done and full duplex. And if I do it like a bit smaller window over there, if I refresh the page, yeah, now it's get cold. Yeah, it was supposed to be. We were just supposed to refresh the page. That's the problem. So now you can see that if I change it, my LED will toggle as I change it. That's it. In the next part, probably it's gonna be in another video then, I will show you how to add the user button parts. I hope it was useful. If you have any questions, please let me know, and good luck.